Most people don't stop because they're powerless. They stop because they're too willing to accept comfort. They quit when they feel tired, stop when they lose interest, stop when the applause dies down. But success doesn't care about your emotions. It doesn't measure effort by how comfortable you feel, but by whether you still show up when no one is watching. Success has no obligation to wait until you're ready, and it certainly doesn't have any feelings for your exhaustion, boredom, or confusion. It only responds to action. It tests you in the moments when you feel completely depleted and waits to see if you have the courage to continue. Every time your mind screams to stop, that is not a signal to retreat. That is the test. And when you overcome it, you don't just take one more step, you begin to redefine who you are. You're entering a transformation that most people have never been strong enough to experience. Every person you admire, they have all stood at that edge, keep going or give up. And the only thing that separates them from the masses is that they chose to move forward while others chose to stay behind. The truth is, if you only act when things are favorable, you'll never build anything real. Because life does not operate according to your emotional schedule. There will be days when you don't want to get out of bed, days when you doubt everything. And on those days, when you still choose to act, you are sending a clear message to the world. You are not someone who only runs when the sky is clear. You are someone who keeps going even in the darkest of storms. You don't wait for motivation. You operate on discipline. You don't ask yourself if you feel like continuing. You answer, I made a commitment. And commitment is not dependent on emotion. When you begin to push beyond the limit, something strange happens. The fatigue doesn't go away, but it no longer controls you. You begin to realize that you're not as weak as you once thought. Your mind is not your enemy. It has simply never been trained to understand that tired doesn't mean stop. It's just a signal. And you have the right not to react to it the way you used to. When you keep going while everything inside you wants to quit, you are no longer ordinary. You're building a new version of yourself, one that is not easily defeated, not controlled by circumstances, no longer living by external conditions. A person like that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because the results will speak for themselves. And when you maintain action in the zone of resistance, when you not only overcome fatigue but turn it into fuel, you are not just getting closer to success, you are becoming success itself. Not because you are better than anyone, but because you have learned what very few ever truly understand. Action does not need permission from emotion. And the moment you stop asking, do I feel like doing this, is the very moment you begin to redirect your entire life. You were not born to live half-heartedly, to give up, to compromise with yourself. You were born to rise. And every time you force yourself to take one more step, even when you want to stop, you are fulfilling that mission. Silently, powerfully, without needing recognition, just by continuing. And there are always two roads in front of you. One leads back to where you've been: comfort, safety, predictability, filled with familiar voices telling you to be content with what you have. That path doesn't demand change. It doesn't make you face risk, and it offers you nothing except a repeated version of who you were yesterday. But the second road, it's not smooth, not pleasant, and certainly doesn't come with a clear map. It leads toward what you've never had but always wanted: dreams still unfulfilled, goals still unreached, and a version of yourself still asleep, waiting to be awakened. I don't need to ask which road is more compelling. Deep down, you already know. But knowing is one thing. Daring to walk it is another. Familiarity has a strange pull. It convinces you things are fine, even when deep inside you're slowly dying from stagnation. You feel like something is missing, though you can't name it. That's the sign that you no longer fit the old road. You've grown. But stepping onto the new road isn't just a decision to change. It requires you to shatter your old belief system. You'll face uncertainty, judgment from others, and even from yourself. You won't have all the answers, but you'll have a choice: move forward or turn back. And the moment you choose to move, even with fear in your mind, you're doing what most people never dare: living according to what you truly want, not what others expect. I'll tell you that path is risky, that you should be realistic, that you should be grateful for what you have and stop dreaming. But look around. The ones who changed the world, the ones who built greatness, none of them chose the easy road. They chose what no one else could see, could believe, or dare to start. And when you dare to step on that path, You're not just chasing a dream, you're returning to yourself, to a version not bound by limits, not trapped in a mold. Old greatness begins with a silent moment like this, when you stand at a fork in the road with no guide, no lights, no map, only a quiet voice whispering, "There's more for you than this." And when you believe that voice, however faint, however fragile, you've just made the most sacred rebellion, to no longer live small. You've been given the power to choose. You can go back and live a pleasant but empty life, or you can step into the unwalked path where nothing is certain, but everything is possible. That road will challenge you, no doubt, but that's what makes it worth it, because every step doesn't just lead you towards success, it rebuilds you. You'll no longer be a dreamer, you'll be a creator. And the world is not changed by those who stand still. It is changed by those who dare to move even when no one moves with them. No one has ever reached greatness without first bowing before failure. No one. Every legend you've ever heard of, from presidents to entrepreneurs, from artists to scientists, has stood where you stand now, doubting themselves, enduring failure, and being rejected more than once. But instead of letting failure shape their fate, they used it to forge resilience. They didn't walk straight into glory. They went through dead ends, through heartbreak, through days where they had no belief left. And that's exactly what made them irreplaceable. Look at Abraham Lincoln. He wasn't an untouchable genius. He failed in business, lost elections repeatedly, experienced the pain of losing loved ones, and faced endless rejections. But he kept going, not because he knew he would win, but because he refused to let failure be the end. That decision, the choice to keep walking when every reason said to stop, is what shaped history. His story isn't the exception, it's the evidence. Evidence that greatness doesn't come from favorable conditions, but from staying power in adversity. The sooner you understand this, the sooner you'll escape the trap of perfection. The truth is, failure doesn't kill you, but avoiding failure will kill your potential. Don't confuse falling with finishing. Great people fall more than once, but they understand one thing: every time they rise, they don't return to the starting line. They've evolved, they've learned what success could never teach. Rejection teaches you the power of perseverance. Failure teaches you humility. Mistakes teach you how to refine your strategy. And all of these combined turn you into someone who can't be replicated. In the real world, there are no awards for never being wrong, but there will always be rewards for those who dare to try again. So if you're carrying the weight of past failures, remember, they are not the end. They are the beginning others never saw. Maybe you've been rejected. Maybe you've been laughed at or lost what felt like an irreplaceable opportunity. But what matters is you're still here, still listening, still holding the chance to turn all that was lost into the raw material for something greater. Others might look at your failure and see a period. But if you have enough courage, you'll look at that very failure and see a door that only opens for those who refuse to give in. Every best-selling author once received stacks of rejection letters. Every gold medalist has tasted silent defeat. Every great entrepreneur has known bankruptcy, betrayal, and the sting of losing everything they trusted. But they kept going. And because of that, they stand apart. They're not richer than you in ideas. They're richer in one thing only: the determination never to quit. And that is something you can choose. Greatness is not about never failing. It's about whether you dare to return, to rebuild, to walk forward, even when no one else is standing beside you. And if you can do that, you're not just getting closer to your dream, you've entered the realm of those for whom failure is no longer an enemy, but an invisible ally on the journey to becoming the greatest version of who you are. You don't grow by avoiding pain. You don't mature when everything goes smoothly, effortlessly, according to plan. On the contrary, you begin to transform when what once felt safe suddenly collapses, when the people you trusted walk away, when the job you once took pride in no longer feels like where you belong. It's in those painful, disappointing, gut-wrenching moments when you feel like giving up that you are given the chance to be reborn, but only if you have the courage to walk into it. I know you've heard this before: it'll all be okay. But the deeper truth is, it only becomes okay when you dare to walk through what's not okay. You can't avoid being hurt and still become strong. You can't learn how to walk if you always dodge the rocky road. You can't build muscle by staying in your comfort zone. And you will never build resilience if you keep waiting for life to treat you kindly. I'm not saying you should seek pain, But you must stop running from it, stop seeing it as something to avoid, and start seeing it as your training ground. Negative emotions are not the enemy, they are signals. Every time you're hurt, you learn where you're fragile. Every time you're disappointed, you learn what needs adjusting. And every time you fail, you receive valuable information that success could never offer. The problem is most people don't stay long enough to learn that. They hit the first wall and retreat. They think pain is a sign they're on the wrong path, but it's not. Pain is the sign you're stepping into unexplored territory. You're entering the zone of real growth, where there's no map, no manual, and no one ahead of you lighting the way. That's terrifying, but it's also a privilege, because you are walking a road few people are committed enough to finish. And what lies at the end of that road is not just a result. It's a version of you that you've never imagined before. A you that is no longer afraid of getting hurt, no longer dodging risks, no longer living in the shadow of hesitation. A you that can stand firm in the storm and not be swept away by other people's opinions. You don't get there by wishing things were easy. You get there by showing up, by getting knocked down and getting back up, by being doubted and still pressing forward, by being rejected but refusing to quit. You become strong not when pain disappears, but when pain no longer controls your decisions. When you can look straight at the challenge and say, I won't run anymore. I'm stepping in, because you know that every limit you ever had was built from fear. And the only way to break that limit is to walk through the very thing you've been avoiding. No one grows in comfort. You won't evolve in easy days. But in every moment when you feel like stopping, like running, like disappearing, if you choose to stay, to keep going, to learn how to endure and transform, then in that moment, you are creating a silent breakthrough. No one else may see it yet, but you'll feel it in how you face the next challenge, in how you no longer flinch at the things that once shattered you. And then one day you'll look back and realize the very things that once caused you the most pain became your most valuable lessons. You don't grow by avoiding pain. You grow by walking into it, through it, and coming out not with a broken heart, but a stronger one. Not bitter, but wiser. Not closed off, but more open to yourself and to the world. That is real growth. And you only achieve it when you're brave enough to stop running. You won't go far if you don't clearly know what you're going for. Every vague effort leads to a half-hearted result. Every journey without direction eventually gets lost. What keeps a person going until the end isn't energy, isn't temporary motivation, is a clear, powerful, deeply personal reason that nothing can shake. If you can't articulate exactly why you must continue, then when fatigue hits, when failure comes, when no one believes in you anymore, even you will give up. I'm not asking what you want. Everyone wants something. The real question is, how badly do you want it and why? Your reason has no right to be vague. It cannot be, I want success, or I want a better life. What is better? What does success mean? If you can't answer with specifics, you won't have enough reason to act every single day, especially on the hard days. Look at anyone who's changed the world, achieved the impossible, persevered through what others walked away from, and they aren't superheroes. But they had a reason, so clear it couldn't be ignored. That reason wasn't something they read online or heard from others. It came from within. It was tied to the values they believed in, the pain they had endured, the dreams they refused to let die. When your reason is strong enough, no one needs to remind you to stay persistent. You'll remind yourself, you'll remember why you started, and you won't let temporary hardships destroy something you've been building for a long-term mission. Reason is the anchor that holds you in the storm. It's the thing that when you lose your way, all you have to do is look back at it and you know why you must keep going. When you want to quit, it's the voice whispering in your mind, no, you haven't arrived yet. And more than anything, the clearer the reason, the stronger the action. When you know why you wake up early, you don't complain. When you know why you say no to distractions, you don't feel deprived. When you know why you endure pressure, you don't need sympathy, because you're not acting for validation. You're acting to complete something greater than all the eyes around you. A strong reason turns pain into fuel, turns failure into a lesson, turns time into an asset. But if you live without a clear reason, you'll become someone who chases every trend, every borrowed goal, every dream that was never yours to begin with. And in the end, even if you achieve something, you'll still feel empty because it was never your path. So stop. Don't take another step until you've made this clear. Why Must I keep going? Write it down. Not just in your mind, on paper, on a wall. Somewhere you'll see it every morning. The reason you chose, the dream you're chasing, the person you want to become, the legacy you'd leave. Every time you're tired, read it again. Every time you're afraid, repeat it. Every time you want to stop, remember it. This is not a motivational ritual. This is a survival strategy. Because no one can stay committed long-term to a journey they don't understand the purpose of. And no real achievement is built on the foundation of vagueness. Only when you know exactly what burns inside you can you keep moving. Without hesitation, without compromise, without needing applause, then every step you take is no longer a reaction, it's a declaration. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing, and I know why it's worth everything I have to give. Without a clear goal, you're not just lost, you're turning yourself into a directionless wanderer in the vast desert of life. Dreams are necessary, ideals are important, but if you don't know exactly where you're going, when you need to get there, and what specific steps to take, you'll remain stuck, busy but not progressing. Because desire alone is not enough. What you need is structure. A goal is the compass in your hand. It helps you distinguish between what truly matters and what merely distracts. It helps you know what to say yes to and what to firmly say no to, even if it's tempting but doesn't take you where you need to be. When you don't have a goal, you fall into a common trap, doing a lot every day, but none of it truly matters. You feel like you're trying, but in truth, you're drifting. And that's what leaves people feeling exhausted, burnt out, and disappointed in themselves. Not because they didn't work, but because they don't know what they're working for. On the other hand, a clear goal turns every action into a purposeful step. You're not just waking up early. You're rising to prepare a skill you need. You're not just saving money. You're saving to invest in something that creates real value. You're not just working hard. You're taking calculated steps toward a destination you've chosen. Look at the greatest human achievements. None came from randomness. The rocket didn't land on the moon because of a vague idea. It started with a vision, broken into specific goals, each goal into thousands of tests, tens of thousands of calculations, and millions of precise labor hours. That's the power of a goal. It transforms the impossible into the undeniable. And you can do the same. But the non-negotiable condition is that you must sit down and write it out. What do you want? When? How? Why? Does it matter so much that you're willing to trade your time, energy, and comfort to pursue it to the end? If you can't answer those questions clearly, your journey will be vague. You'll be easily distracted by irrelevant things, easily defeated by ordinary setbacks, and easily thrown off course just because someone else is moving faster, even if they're headed in a completely different direction. When you set a clear goal, you begin to act with greater awareness. You're not swayed by fleeting emotions. You have a checkpoint to realign yourself. Each month, each week, each day, you can ask, am I getting closer or further away from my goal? And if further, you know what to adjust. You don't need to wait until failure wakes you up. Goals help you take control of the game early. But don't stop at thinking it in your head. Write it down. Post it somewhere visible. Turn your goal into a tangible commitment. And once you have it, break it into smaller milestones. Every time you hit one, you're not just closer to the destination. You're training yourself in worthiness, confidence, and the inner belief that you can, because every journey is long. But if you don't know where you're going, then no matter how fast you move, you'll still end up somewhere you never wanted to be. Goals are the foundation. Without them, you can't focus. Without them, you're easily influenced. And without them, no matter how much potential you hold, you will live beneath your true capability. So don't begin a new day, a new week, or a new chapter of life until you stop and define clearly what do you want and what are you willing to do to make it real. Everything only truly begins when you have a goal that is non-negotiable. If you wait until no one criticizes you before taking action, you will never do anything meaningful in your life. Criticism always exists, and it usually shows up the moment you begin stepping out of your comfort zone. That's not a coincidence, it's a law. When you stay silent, when you blend into the crowd, no one pays attention. But when you begin expressing your opinions, when you start acting in a direction that most people don't dare to go, voices of resistance, ridicule, and doubt will arise, not because you're wrong, but because you make others feel insecure about their own limitations. Those criticisms don't reflect your true worth, they reflect others' limited understanding. And if you don't grasp this, you'll be misled, you'll start doubting yourself, holding back, shrinking. But remember, no great idea was ever welcomed without being labeled as crazy first. The people who changed the world were not greeted with applause. They were mocked, rejected, pushed to the margins, and yet they kept going because they knew what was real. Galileo looked through his telescope and saw a different universe, and he was condemned. Einstein broke the boundaries of traditional physics, and he was laughed at. What you are doing today may not be accepted, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. The crowd does not determine what is right. History shows those most fiercely criticized were often ahead of their time. So if you're doing something you believe is right and you're facing opposition, don't panic. Be calm. Return to your goals, your reasons, your principles. If they're still intact, you have nothing to adjust, except your attitude toward doubt. There are two types of criticism, constructive and destructive. Learn to tell the difference. Honest feedback, even if hard to hear, is a gift that helps you see what you couldn't. But noise that has no intent to improve, only to discourage, you must learn to ignore. Because if you allow every outside voice to get inside, you'll soon lose your direction. Successful people are not guided by the crowd. They are guided by vision. And to protect that vision, you must master one essential skill. Keep moving, even when misunderstood, even when isolated, even when told you will fail. Because the moment you stand firm in the face of doubt, you are developing a kind of strength no one can take from you. Inner power. The kind that doesn't come from praise or recognition, but from quiet, unwavering resolve. You must be willing to be laughed at today, to be respected tomorrow. You must dare to walk against the wind, to see a horizon others cannot. And you must understand, if you give up just because of criticism, then you never truly believed in your path. So if someone says you're dreaming, says you're reckless, says you should be more realistic, smile, not because you don't care, but because you know where you're going. And when you have enough silence to act, enough courage to move without applause, enough clarity to listen without being swept away, every step you take, however slow, will carry weight. Let your results speak. Let your success be the evidence. Not for revenge, but to silence every voice that ever doubted you. Because in the end, it's not the critic who is right. It's the one who dares to go all the way. Stubbornness is instinct, but adaptability is intelligence. In a world that moves relentlessly, where everything can change overnight, from technology, markets, and mindsets to even the person you are, adaptability is no longer optional, it's a condition for survival. Successful people aren't always the strongest. They're the ones who know when to pivot. They're not tied to their ego, not trapped in the past, not clinging to methods that once worked but are now outdated. They understand that the essence of the game isn't about keeping the same strategy, it's about keeping the same goal. The path to that goal must always be evolving. Many people fail not because they lack effort, but because they refuse to shift direction. They crash headfirst into a wall, believing persistence means never turning left or right, when in fact, what's needed is finding a smarter path forward. Don't confuse consistency with rigidity. A flexible person is not easily swayed. They hold firm to core values, but are willing to relearn, rebuild, and change the entire system if it helps them move faster, more effectively. They don't define themselves by the method, they define themselves by the result. And if the old method no longer produces result, they don't cling to it, they adapt quickly. That's why they stay ahead. The world doesn't wait for you. What works today might become tomorrow's obstacle. If you don't change faster than the environment will swallow you whole. No one is immune to elimination. But those who adjust in time won't fall behind. They know when to hold firm and when to pivot. They don't get emotionally attached to a strategy. They make decisions based on data, reality, and vision. They don't say, I'm used to doing it this way. They ask, what approach fits best right now? Flexibility doesn't mean lacking conviction. It's the ability to detect change early, adjust swiftly, and still preserve the ultimate goal. Like a sailboat on the open sea, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust a sail. And the one who adjusts the sail best is the one who travels the farthest. History is full of examples. Dwight D. Eisenhower, a general, a president, a brilliant strategist. was not known for extremism, but for balance. He knew when to be soft, when to be firm, when to stay the course, and when to reform. And thanks to that ability, he led an entire nation through turbulent times without losing direction. The lesson here is clear. If you're rigid, you'll break. If you're inflexible, you'll be left behind. True stability doesn't come from resisting change. It comes from adapting quickly and proactively. You must begin developing that skill now. Look at your habits, your thinking patterns, your ways of working and problem solving. What's outdated? What used to be effective but now only holds you back? Have the courage to discard it. Dare to learn again from scratch. Step into the new with the mindset of a creator, not a clinger. So step into the new with life is a constant refinement process. Winners are not those who start perfectly. They're the ones who keep optimizing throughout the journey. So don't chain yourself to an old mindset, a fixed method, or a stale definition. Keep asking, is this still working? Am I updating fast enough? Am I the best version of myself for this moment? And if the answer is no, then instead of holding on, act. Flexibility doesn't make you weak. It's proof that you are evolving. And in a world of constant change, adaptability is the most sustainable competitive advantage you can have. There is no armor that protects you from doubt, judgment, or failure better than inner belief. Not the kind of belief that flares up in moments of excitement, nor the confidence you wear when everything's going well. I'm talking about a quiet, steady, deep-rooted belief, the kind that exists even when no one's cheering for you, even when you're not sure you'll succeed. This is the inner armor every resilient person possesses. They're not strong because they're never doubted. They're strong because they stand firm despite being doubted. And you can build that too. Start by paying attention to what you say to yourself every day, because your mind hears everything. It doesn't distinguish between truth and repetition. If you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, not fast enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, your mind will log that as a command, and then you'll act exactly as you've instructed yourself. But if you start to change from the inside with a different voice, one that's stronger, clearer, everything begins to shift, not through empty slogans, but by choosing words that nourish you. Say, I am improving every day. I am worthy of the goals I set. I have what it takes to overcome this challenge. These aren't lies, they're choices. And if you repeat them long enough, you'll begin to behave like someone who matters. His real confidence doesn't come from others believing in you. It comes from behaving as if you already believe in yourself. Think of Muhammad Ali. Before the world accepted he was the greatest, he had already declared it to himself, again and again, until it became an undeniable truth. That wasn't arrogance, it was awareness. He understood, if you don't choose to believe in yourself first, no one else will do it for you. In the first quote, and that belief, when built through real experiences, when rooted in the memory of every challenge you thought you couldn't overcome but did, becomes an unbreakable force. You're no longer shaken by others' opinions. You're not wounded by rejection. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone because you know who you are, you know what lies ahead, and you know what you carry within to get there. But inner belief doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's built, shaped, and reinforced through small actions. Every time you say you'll do something and actually do it, you send a message to yourself that your words can be trusted. Every time you complete even a small task, you lay another brick in the foundation of mental strength. And the more often you keep your word to yourself, the less you'll need others to validate your word. Inner belief is the armor you wear every day without having to show it off. It isn't flashy, it isn't loud, but it will save you when no one's around. In moments of self-doubt, it reminds you you've already survived worse. On dark days, it's the dim light that never goes out, guiding you through the maze of insecurity. You don't need to wait until you become someone to start believing in yourself. It's the act of believing and behaving as if you already matter that'll get you there. This is not illusion. This is strategy. Because every great act begins with a belief that is firm enough on the inside. And once you build that armor, the outside world no longer gets to decide who you are. You will define yourself, step by step, choice by choice, belief by belief. And no one can take that away from you. True strength doesn't lie in the fact that you've never fallen. It lies in how many times you can rise after you've already fallen. That's resilience. A quiet kind of power, not as glamorous as talent, not as visible as fame, but ultimately the factor that determines how far you'll go in life. Anyone can appear strong when things are going well, but when life begins to take from you the things you hold most dear, your honor, your opportunities, your loved ones, your faith, only those who possess real resilience have the strength to keep moving forward. Don't confuse resilience with luck. It doesn't come from being favored. It comes from refusing to let adversity write your life script. Look at Thomas Edison. He didn't succeed because he got it right the first time. He tried thousands of times, and with every failure, he didn't see himself as inadequate. He saw it as one more way that didn't work, and he kept going. That's not blind optimism. That's calculated persistence. A specific mindset, seeing failure as a resource, not an enemy. Resilient people don't look for someone to blame. They look for lessons to learn. They don't get stuck in the question, why me? They move to, what do I do next? And that shift in thinking gives them a critical advantage, the ability to start over when everything collapses without losing themselves. Because resilience isn't just about getting back up. It's about rising without bitterness, without losing your faith, without turning into a cynic, without letting the pain drag you down forever. It's a higher form of strength, soft but not fragile, quiet but not passive, a steady inner force strong enough to withstand any storm. You will face moments like that when you feel like you've given everything and still failed, when you're lost, when all you have left is one question: can I still go on? And in that exact moment, if you choose to take even one more step, you're restarting the engine inside you. You're rebuilding belief, rewriting the story, healing from the inside out. Resilience is not a gift. It's a habit formed through the times you didn't give up, through the moments you kept going even when no one believed in you anymore. And each of those moments trains a survival mechanism, the instinct of someone who refuses to end their story at the point they fell. Don't wait for inspiration to bounce back. Don't wait for someone to rescue you. Begin with the smallest things. Sleep enough, journal, reset your goals. Speak to yourself with kindness. Remind yourself of everything you've already overcome, and that this time you will again. That's not blind hope. That's the logic of growth. Because the truth is, if you're still breathing, still thinking, still capable of moving forward, then you haven't lost. And as long as you haven't lost, you still have the right to rewrite the ending. Resilience turns you into a quiet force. Others may not see it right away, but eventually they'll ask, why does this person never fully break? And the answer will come from within you. Because you chose not to let any circumstance decide who you are. You chose to restart, relearn, relive, stronger, deeper, braver. No one can take that from you. And that right there is what real strength looks like. Your future doesn't begin with circumstances. It begins with mindset. The way you think shapes the way you feel, and the way you feel shapes every action you take each day. If you let your mind drift with emotions, with other people's opinions, with negative news or vague fears, no matter how big your ambitions are, you'll find yourself repeating old loops, drained by inner conflict, and never reaching the best version of who you could be. But if you learn how to control your thinking, not just reacting, but actively shaping your thoughts, you'll create an advantage most people never possess: inner freedom, regardless of outer conditions. Picture your mind as a garden, every thought is a seed. Whatever seed you plant will sooner or later yield a matching result. Negative seeds, like doubt, anger, envy, insecurity, grow into fences that block your vision and your courage. Meanwhile, positive seeds, like gratitude, persistence, learning, courage, open paths that let you go further, deeper, and stronger in any area you pursue. But here's the problem. Most people don't choose. They let their mind run like a chaotic machine, letting every daily event dictate how they feel about themselves. A single insult, a small failure, a simple rejection, and their entire belief system collapses. That's the result of an untrained mind. And the only way to change it is to become the one in charge. Each morning, before the world imposes its thinking on you, ask, what mindset do I choose today? When a sudden challenge hits, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? When you make a mistake, instead of judging yourself, tell yourself, this is data, not destiny. I will improve from here. These small shifts in internal dialogue will create major changes in how you act, react, and recover. Don't underestimate the power of the language you use with yourself. Because mindset isn't just a product of knowledge, it's a result of thinking habits. And you can change that habit day by day. um, Read books that strengthen you, listen to conversations that enlighten you, surround yourself with people who make you want to become better, but above all, work with yourself. Set clear boundaries for toxic thoughts every time your mind repeats a limiting old script. You don't have to believe it, observe it, identify it, then choose to replace it. Mindset is a muscle. If you train it correctly, it grows stronger. And once it's strong enough, you'll no longer fear what used to keep you stuck. When others are swept away by circumstances, you'll stay aligned. When the world panics, you'll still see what needs to be done, not because you're special, but because you've chosen to master the one thing everyone owns but few train, the mind. And when you control it, you don't just control the present, you're programming the future. Every thought today becomes the bloodstream of tomorrow. And if you nourish them the right way, tomorrow will be living proof of the quiet strength you've been building inside. You can have an extraordinary dream, a clear vision, a solid mindset, and unwavering belief in yourself. But if you don't take action, none of it matters. No one becomes successful because they think more than others. They succeed because they dare to start, dare to act, dare to fail, dare to course correct, and dare to keep going while others are still hesitating. Good ideas don't create results. Perfect plans don't change reality. Only action, even clumsy, small, or incomplete, can transform what you imagine into what you live. And the truth is, most people don't lack knowledge. They lack the courage to begin. They think one more day will prepare them better, but in reality, every day of delay dims their dream, weakens their drive, and drains their confidence. They wait until they feel ready. While those who truly move forward are the ones who begin despite doubt. They don't wait for inspiration, they create it through motion. When you act, you create momentum. And momentum is what makes the difference. One small step today, repeated daily, will go farther than a perfect step you never take. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. Do the thing you've been thinking about for so long. Write that email, make that call, sign up for that course, open that file, lay the first brick. Don't wait until fear disappears, because it won't. Fear only retreats when you step toward it. And action is the only way to prove you're stronger than the excuses in your mind. Don't mistake the first step for needing to be grand. It just needs to be real. You don't need to see the whole path, just enough light for the next step. Every action is a brick laid in the bridge between potential and reality. And the more you act, the clearer you become. The more you act, the more confident you grow. Because you're showing yourself, I can. And when you do that long enough, you stop living on impulse, you start living by principle. Life doesn't reward good intentions, it rewards those who take bold action. Every rough draft in your head will remain imaginary if you never type the first word. Every dream in your heart will stay shapeless unless you begin to build it. Every flawless plan you write is worthless if you never once test it in the real world. Don't let perfection kill progress. Don't let preparation become a mask for procrastination. You will learn more in one day of action than in a month of analysis. And more importantly, you will become someone different, someone who acts, someone with results, someone with discipline, someone who is living proof that great things are built from small, repeated, consistent actions, regardless of emotion. In the end, no one is remembered for what they intended to do. They're remembered for what they actually did. So instead of thinking one more round, take one more step and then another until action becomes habit and results become inevitable. That's when you're no longer living in potential, you're living in achievement. And it all begins with that first step right now. No more waiting, no more reasons. Just begin.